Assalamu alaikum. Once again, we are starting the English program now. For those who are here for the English program, we ask that you please move forward. The Urdu program has started in room 103, the Farsi hall. And the Farsi program is also in the Rise Academy parking lot. So please head to your respective halls now. And for those here for English, we ask that you please come forward. Jazakallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون كلا سيعلمون ثم كلا سيعلمون ألم نجعل الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا وخلقناكم أزواجا وجعلنا نومكم سباتا وجعلنا الليل لباسا وجعلنا النهار معاشا وبنينا فوقكم سبعا شدادا وجعلنا سراجا وهاجا وأنزلنا من المعصرات ماء ثجاجا لنخرج به حبا ونباتا وجنات ألفافا إن يوم الفصل كان ميقاتا يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا وفتحت السماء فكانت أبوابا وسيرت الجبال فكانت سرابا إن جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا لابثين فيها أحقابا لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شرابا إلا حميما وغساقا جزاء وفاقا إنهم كانوا لا يرجون حسابا وكذبوا بآياتنا كذابا وكل شيء أحصيناه كتابا فذوقوا فلن نزيدكم إلا عذابا صدق الله العلي العظيم الله.
Assalamu alaikum, just a few announcements. Tomorrow after the English program there's Muharram cleanup. So the board requests if you are able to stay, please help him clean up with all of the taking down of the banners. Also tonight we're very honored to have Sheikh Salim hosting a discussion after the English program for youth ages 16 to 30. So please stick around for that if you're able to. And if you guys don't need to sit on a chair and you're able to sit on the floor, please move as close as possible and invite Sheikh Salim up with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين وسيد المرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعن الله الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من ليلتنا هذه إلى قيام يوم الدين. Tonight is the second night of the month of Safar, and in traditions we know that this month is a heavy month for the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam and for the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. My condolences to all of you on the occasions that we are commemorating. Last night we began a series, a three-part series with the help of Allah. And the topic of the series was an exploration of some of the divine names of Allah. And just as a recap for those of you who weren't there last night, and even as a review for those of us who were, when Imam Ali alayhi salam was in the midst of the battle of Jamal, a man came to him and he asked a question about one of the names of Allah. And the people around Imam Ali alayhi salam told him that, why are you bothering the commander of the faithful at this time? He's busy planning battle strategy. He's busy trying to protect and save the Muslims. Don't you see his heart is distracted? And Imam Ali Islam told them that leave him alone, because what he wants is what we want from the people. The mission of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, whether it be through their teachings, whether it be through their battle, their struggle was one struggle. And it came in different forms. And that struggle was the same struggle as the struggle of our Prophet. And that struggle was to elevate the word of Tawheed, Kalimatullah, to make the knowledge of Allah and to make His reign be supreme over the earth. And so Imam Ali Islam went on to explain to him that this is the subtle meanings of this name of Allah that you're asking about. And so that was an inspiration for the series that I began last night. Last night we talked about one of the names of Allah, which was Al-Alim. And we talked about different aspects of Allah being the knower. Tonight I want to talk about another name of Allah. But before that, I just wanted to complete the discussion, at least, in terms of what I wanted to say about Allah's knowledge, and then we'll inshallah move on to the next name of Allah. I want to use one of the ayahs from the Quran, which is from Surah Luqman, where Allah is describing an aspect of His knowledge. And in this surah, as you know, in Surah Luqman, there's a discussion that's taking place between a father and a son, Luqman and his son. So you get to see here, how does a wise person speak to their children? What do they talk about with them? What do they teach them? So he says that in ayah number 16, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا بني إنها إن تك مثقال حبة من خردل فتكن في صخرة أو في السماوات أو في الأرض يأتي بها الله إن الله لطيف خبير. He says, "O my dear son, even if it should be the weight of a mustard seed, and even though it should be in a rock or in the heavens or in the earth, Allah will produce it. Indeed, Allah is all attentive and all aware." So, there's a question that comes when you read this ayah, that what is Allah talking about here? Even if it should be the weight of a mustard seed. What is that it? The commentators of the Quran, they say that when you read the context, Luqman is talking about the smallest and most hidden or most insignificant of actions that somebody may do, whether it be something positive or something negative. He's saying that even if it's something that no one else knows, right? It's the weight of a mustard seed. Mustard seed in Arabic language is used to symbolize something which is very like infinitesimal, something which is really tiny. So even if its weight is of a mustard seed, even though it be in a rock meaning that it's kind of like hidden underneath something, right? Or in the heavens, it's really high up, or in the earth, anywhere, right? Even if it's small, even if it's something which is far from the eyes of other people, يَأْتِي بِهَا اللَّهِ, meaning that Allah will produce it, meaning Allah will, His knowledge encompasses it. And on the Day of Judgment, that action will see its consequence. It will see its reward or see, the negative consequences. So, there's a story that's told of Nabi Dawood alayhi salam. I'm sure that many of you have heard of it before, but it's a good reminder. That one time Nabi Dawood alayhi salam wants to do munajat with Allah. And so he says that, okay, the best way I can do that is by taking the effort and I'm going to climb the mountain. So he takes the trek up to the top of the mountain and he begins to talk to Allah from the top of the mountain. So Allah reveals to him and he says to him that, O Dawood, that why did you climb atop this mountain? Did you not think I could hear you if you were to call upon me when you were with the other people? So then he sends Jibreel alayhi salam to Nabi Dawood, and Jibreel alayhi salam shows Nabi Dawood a vision, and in that vision they go into the bottom of the sea. So it's very dark in the bottom of the sea, there's no light that penetrates there. They go to the bottom of the sea, and in the bottom of the sea there's a tremendous boulder, and Jibreel alayhi salam, he takes the boulder and he moves the boulder. And underneath the boulder, which is at the bottom of the sea, there's a tiny worm. And Jibreel alayhi salam tells Dawood that Allah wants me to tell you that this tiny worm underneath that rock in the bottom of the ocean, I hear the cry of this worm as well. When this worm calls upon me, I'm hearing it as well. So don't ever think that I cannot hear your prayers. Let's say that you're amidst other people. I am aware, I'm attentive at all times. So this is part of the knowledge of Allah. The knowledge of Allah is not limited. Now, when Allah describes His knowledge in this ayah of Surah Luqman, He uses this one name of His, which is Al-Latif. He says that, Inna Allah latifun khabir. And this is the name that I want to focus on tonight. Latif is one of those very beautiful names in the Quran that even if we just understand like the meaning of that word, it can really enhance our understanding and deepen our understanding of, inshallah, of Allah. A lot of times, when we read the Quran, we get used to like thinking of a certain translation, especially those of us who are not native Arabic speakers. So, we might read in English, we see, for example, Latif is the one who is, all attentive, right? Or the one who is subtle, or the one who is nice. But what does Latif actually mean? So, I'm going to give you an example from the Quran itself. One of the very interesting ways of understanding the meanings of some of the words in the Quran is that you look at how that word has been used in other ayahs of the Quran. So there's a story in the Quran of Ashab al-Kahf that I'm sure everyone is familiar with. Ashab al-Kahf, they are asleep for a long time and then they wake up, with the power of Allah, and now everything's changed around them. It's a new time, a new government. So they decide to venture out of the cave. But when the leader of Ashab al-Kahf, he tells one of his fellow companions, he says that go and at least get some food for us, find out what's going on. He says that when you go, فَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ, do it in a way where you are exercising lutf. Okay, the lutf is the same word, root word as latif, which is the name of Allah that we're talking about. So what is he telling him there? He's telling him that when you go, you don't have to do things in a way where you're going to attract attention to us. Right? We're in hiding here from persecution, right? We ran away from our homes. Maybe they're after us. They weren't aware of how long they had been asleep. So go and do things in a way where you're subtle, right? You're not advertising yourself. You're not being like open about what you're doing. Be subtle, be smart, right? And do what you have to do in this subtle sort of way. So one of the meanings that we understand about lutf is from this ayah of the Quran, that when somebody who is latif does what they do in a subtle sort of way. There's another ayah of the Quran where Allah uses the word latif, and this is from the story of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So in the story of Nabi Yusuf, there's many parts to this story, but there's one point which is towards the end of the story where everything that had happened, all the events that had taken place in the life of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, it hit like this point where everything came together. When they write stories, right, there's a technique to storytelling and a technique to story writing. And part of this technique involves like doing things in a way where you keep the reader's interest. And the Quran refers to the story of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam as ahsanul qasas, like the best of stories. So this story is very interesting because you have different like threads of events that are happening with different people, and then at the end everything comes together. So Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam was separated from his family. He was mistreated by his brothers. His father was in grieving and mourning for decades. And there's a series of events that have to transpire and tests that the family has to go through and that the brothers have to go through. Eventually, Nabi Yaqub alayhi salam, being a prophet of God, he's given the green light, from Allah, that go ahead and now find Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam. Go seek him out. For all those years, like he had to be patient. But now he tells his sons, فَتَحَسَّسُوا, go in with all your might. Go and find Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam. Maybe Allah will reunite me with all my sons. And eventually this is what happens. They all end up going into the presence of Nabi Yusuf. Nabi Yusuf now is the leader in that land. So at this point, when Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam is summarizing everything that happened to him, right? He was taken from being a son of a prophet. He was put in the bottom of a well. He was taken by a caravan. He was put into slavery. When he grew up, he had to face many tests. Eventually, he was put into prison. In prison, he was forgotten for many years, and he had to face all these trials. And then suddenly, these events happen, and people remember him again. And then, the king he notices that there's somebody there who can interpret dreams. And Nabi Yusuf says that, okay, well, I'm a trustworthy person, give me this position. All these things happen, event after event after event. Then he says the summary of it. He says, وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ وَجَاءَ بِكُم مِّنَ الْبَدْوِ مِن بَعْدِ أَن نَزَغَ الشَّيْطَانُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ إِخْوَتِي. So he says that, my father, this is the fulfillment of my dream, which my Lord had come true. He was gracious to me. He was kind to me when he brought me out of the prison and brought you from over the desert after Shaitan had created ill feeling between me and my brothers. You see, one of the, as a side point here, Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, he could have used this opportunity to really tell his father that this is what my brothers did to me, right? Everything that happened is their fault. They were terrible to me. They wronged me. But not once does he say anything to put blame on them. And this is considered one of the miracles of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, that in that position of power, he held himself back. He checked his emotions. And instead, he blamed it on Shaitan. He says, Shaitan, created something between me and my brothers. It's a very beautiful lesson on how we're supposed to treat other people, especially believers. But then he says that Inna Rabbi latifun lima yasha innahu huwa al-alim al-hakim. He says, indeed, my Rabb, my Lord, is latif in what he does. When he wants something, he does it in a way where he is latif. I want to pause here. Allah in the Quran, when he talks about the way he does things, he uses different expressions. Sometimes Allah talks about his power and His might in all of its glory. For example, in the story of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam and Nimrud, when Ibrahim wants to challenge Nimrud with all of his arrogance, right? The king of the land, he says what? He says, Nimrud, inna Allaha ya'ati bishamsi. Indeed, Allah brings the sun from the east to the west, right? The sun rises in the east and it goes to the west. Now, if you really think you're something, right? You think you're powerful, and then make it go from the west to the east, right? Nabi Ibrahim ﷺ is using the power of Allah in the natural world, and there's so much of it. Right now, you hear about this. I think it's a hurricane that they're saying is going to land in Southern California. Right? This is an example of the power of Allah. Sometimes Allah speaks about His power in terms of the ability of Allah to make to meet His goals. So, for example, Allah says in Surah Al-Mujadala, كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَأَغْلِبَنَّ أَنَا وَرُسُلِي إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَوِيٌّ عَزِيزٌ. He says that Allah has decreed. He says that I am definitely, for sure, لَأَغْلِبَنَّ, I'm going to be victorious, me and my messengers. And indeed, Allah is قَوِيٌّ, He's strong, and He's Aziz, He is mighty and impenetrable. None can come in and affect Him. Sometimes Allah talks about His power from those ways, in terms of the glory. But a powerful person and a powerful being is not only somebody who can exercise raw power. The truly powerful being is the one who can take that power and use it in the right measure, in the right place, to accomplish the right results. And so when Allah is talking about His being Latif, He's talking about this aspect of His power. That when He wants to do something, then He does it, but He does it in a very delicate and intricate, with attention to details manner. And in a way where He's trying to bring about the best for the person He's dealing with. So in the case of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, who would have thought that a boy at the bottom of a well, a child at the bottom of a well who was abandoned by his own brothers, would one day be in a position of authority over not only his brothers but the entire land? Who would have thought that? But when Allah wants that to happen, He makes it happen. Who would have thought that a father who was mourning for decades, such that even his closest family members were calling him, almost accusing him of being like overdoing it, that he would eventually be able to be reunited with his beloved? Who would have thought? But Allah is Latif. He does things in a way where sometimes we can't even perceive them. And He's aware, He's attentive, He knows what's going on in people's hearts. We have a hadith, which is a very powerful, beautiful hadith. It's reported in our books of hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. Please recite salawat. He says, قَلْبُ الْمُؤْمِنِ بَيْنَ إِصْبَعَيْنِ مِنْ أَصَابِعِ الرَّحْمَنِ. He says that the heart of a believer is between the two fingers of Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman is one of the names of Allah that we say every time. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The compassion. The heart of a believer is between the two fingers of the Rahman. Some of our scholars, they commented on this hadith. They say that why is it that Allah says that the heart of a believer is between two fingers? Why didn't Allah say that the heart of the believer is in the hands of God, for example, or under the power of God? There must be a reason. We know that Allah is the one who creates the hand and the fingers. He's beyond possessing a hand and fingers, but there's an expression being used here. So some of them say that when you want to do something which is delicate and precise, you don't go and take your full hand and go and do that thing that you want to do. What you do is you take a finger and delicately you deal with that. So when Allah is saying that He deals with the hearts of the believers with two fingers, meaning that Allah deals with them very delicately, very tenderly. very gentle, with attention to all the details. This is what we see in the story of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam. We see it in other stories of the Quran. If you look at the story of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, Nabi Musa was thrown into the water by his own mother. And she has to part with her baby son. Somehow Allah creates a situation where not only is she reunited with her beloved, right? In the Quran, in the Arabic language, they use this word qurratul ayn. Qurratul ayn means something which is like the delight of your eye. It's so delightful that you shed tears of happiness, and those tears cool you. It's like cooling tears of joy. Qurratul ayn. The Quran says that Nabi Musa alayhi salam became qurratul ayn to the wife of Fir'aun and to Fir'aun himself. Qurratu aynin li walak, as the ayah says in the Quran. Imagine how a baby could somehow become the source of being beloved to the tyrant of the time and his wife, who was a believer, and reunited with his mother. When Allah wants it to happen, it happens. So, if we want to take this, and when it comes to our lives, one of the problems that we sometimes face, one of the challenges that we face, is we get into situations where we feel like we're powerless. We're stuck. And we're like, I don't know what to do in this case. And sometimes, people despair, right? Just yesterday I was speaking with somebody who was describing his life journey. And he said that as soon as he hit the age of adolescence, like he was in his teens, he said, I started feeling this sense of just, powerlessness and kind of inability. And things just weren't clicking for me. And he was saying that he started, falling into like things like bad habits, substance abuse and other things, until he found solace in religion and faith. And he was saying, it was very beautiful, inshallah some other time we can talk about it, but he was saying how this faith for him is like it's like he feels like he's under a blanket. That feeling where you're under a blanket and you feel comforted, right? This is the way it's meant to be. When we sometimes feel powerless, the problem is that we're relying on ourselves to solve our own problems. When Allah invites us to turn to Him, He says, Latifun Khabir. Allah is Latif. He is Khabir. He knows everything that's going on with you, and then He deals with things with this unlimited, infinite power, but it's not a power which is just the power that's used to, like, let's say, destroy the unbelievers, although that happens as well, or to like cause these natural events that take place, although that happens as well. It's that type of power which can be directed at you and taking care of your affairs. And knowing that Allah is Latif, in that sense, can be very comforting for us. It's a type of healing for us. We need that. We can be healed through the divine names by understanding Allah through these names. They're a mirror for us to be able to appreciate more about Allah's knowledge and His power and His other attributes. So to summarize, tonight we've talked about this attribute of lutf or latif, which means one who is subtle, one who is precise, attention to details, and with good intentions. They're doing things out of kindness. And this is one of the ways that Allah describes the extent of His knowledge and His power. In a way, it's an attribute which ties into both His knowledge and His power, that He's aware of the details and He does things in a delicate manner. We ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us knowledge of His book and the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, so that we can achieve our purpose. Tonight is the second night of the month of Safar, and as we just finished the first day of the month of Safar, according to some reports, it is the day in which the head of our master and Maulana Sayyid al-Shuhada Imam Hussein alayhi salam was sent to Sham, and arrived in the courtyard of Sham. So I thought we could spend a few minutes to end this majlis reminding ourselves of some of the masa'ib of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdillah صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله صلى الله عليك أيها المقتول عطشانا بكربلاء. Peace and blessings be upon you, O son of Ali and Fatima, O grandson of Rasulullah. Peace and blessings be upon you, O master of martyrs, O the one who was slain on the desert sands of Karbala, while his mouth was thirsty. Peace be upon you and upon your noble companions, and upon the prisoners who were taken from Karbala to Kufa and to Sham. يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز معكم فوزا عظيما. If only we could, like you, attain the victory that you attained, and we too could have been martyred, or we too could have been taken prisoner and shown our loyalty through trials and tribulations. As for the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we're told that Ibn Ziyad in Kufa, he wanted to make a display to impress the people. What was he going to display to them? They say that he hung up each one of the heads, 72 heads displayed for the onlookers. This was a source of pride for Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. Zayd ibn Arqam says he was one of the companions of the Prophet. He says he was sitting in his room when he saw the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam being paraded in front of him. He says, I looked and I went to see what is the head saying, and I heard that it was saying, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْكَهْفِ وَالرَّسِّ كَانُوا مِنْ آيَاتِنَا عَجَبًا. Oh, do you think that the fellows of the cave and in the inscription were among our amazing signs? He realizes that Imam Hussein is saying that even more strange is the sign of the grandson of Rasulullah, that his head is speaking and that he was martyred among his own people. Zayd ibn Arqam says, Oh, by Allah, O son of the Messenger of Allah, your head is more amazing than the story of even the people of the cave. When they placed the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the center of the bazaar, everyone came to the head and they went and they did different things to the head. Never had they seen that this type of thing is happening, that the head of the grandson of Rasulullah is reciting from the Quran and people are treating it this way. One of the men says that I saw the man carrying the head of Imam Hussein, and the head was saying that you separated between my head and my body. May Allah separate between your flesh and bones. This is a sign for those who think. And that man took his whip and he began whipping the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. There's one man who says that perhaps, one of the poets says that perhaps when Zainab alayhi salam saw the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam reciting the Quran, perhaps she turned to Ruqayya, the daughter of Imam Hussein, and she said, look at your father is speaking. Your father is speaking. Can you get some comfort from hearing the words of your father? But perhaps Ruqayya might have said at that time that, oh Zainab, oh my aunt, if my father is reciting the Quran, then why are the people throwing stones at that head? Why are they taking their whips and whipping the head which is reciting Quran? Allah la'natullahi ala al-qawmi al-zalimeen wa say'alamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun. We ask Allah Ta'ala to accept this majlis from us and to make us among those who are counted as the mourners of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We ask Allah Ta'ala to be those who keep alive the mission of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in everything we do, in our personal lives, in our work lives, in our education, in our community work, in our service. We ask Allah Ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time with the barakah wa salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. For the brothers to come closer, please. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. What a wondrous scene, a flower in the plain, my wounded Lord Hussein, lying there to die. Nothing does he see but his grandfather, his heavenly mother, come here to our side. Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. See him one last time. Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. See him one last time. The blood upon his face, the blood upon his neck, all still better than what will happen next. Soldiers crowding round, pointing to his throat, the Imam of his time, he lies upon the ground. Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. See him one last time. Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. See him one last time. The dust upon your eyes, the feeling in your throat, the desperate children's cries, the screaming of women. But all within your mind is calling for Hussein. Your brother is in pain, and you must fly to him. Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. See him one last time. Zainab, run to him. Zainab. See him one last time. Sakina at your feet, you look into her eyes. Does she realize what will now occur? Sakina at your feet, you look into her eyes. Does she realize what will now occur? The greatest of mankind will meet the cruelest end, along with his loyal friends, and who will now guard her? Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. Zainab, run to him. See him one last time. Zainab, run to him. See him one last time. Like a lioness worries for its young, you gaze from on a hill, your body's cold with stress. Like a lioness worries for its young, you gaze from on a hill, your body's cold with stress. That body, is it his? That screaming, is it yours? You see his arms and chest not moving anymore. Two orphans on a plane, God knows how hurt they are. just Zainab and Hussein, so close but still so far. Zainab to him, Zainab run to him, Zainab run to him. See, Zainab run to him, Zainab run to him, Zainab run to him. See him one last time. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Leave me there, take me to Karbala, leave me there, take me to Karbala, leave me there, take me to Karbala, leave me there, leave me there, Hussein, Hussein. Hussein, Hussein,
الصلاة والسلام عليك يا رسول الله، الصلاة والسلام عليك يا نبي الله، الصلاة والسلام على المصطفى الأمجد، الصلاة والسلام على حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد ورحمة الله وبركاته، الصلاة والسلام على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على البضعة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على الحسن المجتبى الولي الناصح الأمين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب لا سيما سيدي ومولاي أبي الفضل العباس وأختي زينب. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى جدك وأبيك وعلى أمك وأخيك وعلى التسعة المعصومين من بنيك، لا سيما سيدنا ومولانا صاحب العصر والزمان، عجل الله فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه في جملة أوليائه برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى اللهم على محمد وآل محمد الطيبين الطاهرين.